Before we open for questions?
Yes, well, thank you very much, Eyal. I will try to keep it as short as possible because I want to hear as many comments as you have. But you're completely right. Perhaps this project, is a fair preliminary sketch, right? So I'm not saying that all the details are in place. I just wanted to provide a fresco of how to understand politics, and also to tease out a tradition that lies dormant and completely understood. So, and it is the tradition of Spinoza. It's strange that it's completely understood, because Spinoza's in European Enlightenment is by many considered as the key feature, the one at least of the key features that shape the ideas of radical enlightenment, at least. So this brings me to the question of the normative dimension. So Spinoza, Spinoza's first project is an ethical project. Is not a neutral project. He wants to provide an ethics. He wants to be able to say how to sort of engage in life in a way that is ethically superior. So it just so happens that it's a different ethical project from the vast majority of other ethical projects. And it is a project that has two dimensions, one which is passive and one which is active. The passive dimension is perhaps inherited from Stoics traditions, and it's this deep attempt of understanding, oneself, first and foremost, before jumping at normative conclusions. And I find this really very important, especially in our world, where we always come with a very deep political baggage and we impose judgments on others. Spinoza is saying, well, first and foremost, try to understand what drives you and what are the obstacles or barriers that inform your best possible judgments. And once you do this work of analysis, then perhaps you can start building something more ethically desirable, so to say. But the way in which this is done, again, is by putting at the center a different notion of freedom, freedom of the individual freedom. So for Spinoza, is not the classical sort of conception of freedom as negative, freedom from interference, or freedom from arbitrary interference in the liberal tradition. It's really about freedom from burdens, freedom from somehow psychological obstacles that makes us act and think in certain kind of ways. And this requires a radical sort of a revolution of the mind, as Israel call it. That is, we have to go back at the very roots of our values and understand that most of our concepts are theological concepts and values of theological roots that should be somehow put aside, because when I talk about dignity of human beings or sanctity of life, they all sort of rely on a certain notion of magic. And the normativity in Spinoza is acquired differently, is by trying to explain that the way forward for each individual is to try to attain individual freedom, and then if this is the case, naturally someone who enjoys this freedom will associate with other people in a community, and it will also accept that this community will put in place procedures and institutions that can somehow provide some decisions that at times are dilemmatic decisions. And this brings me very quickly to the last decision, you know, like the last point you made on grounding. So I empathize what you feel in your department, but the point is that you cannot simply put forward or dream up some groundings that or expect that some groundings will meet with the agreement of everyone. What you have to do is you can put forward your view, but in a community you'll have to accept that a certain process will have to inform the final decisions on who to appoint. So it will have to be a process, a democratic process that is meant to encapsulate the freedom of thought of each individual. But the final decision will never satisfy everyone. And the final point was on the world in which we live. So the borders with the Middle Eastern situation. I'm particularly open to the problem of the Middle East, and I think that the Iraq situation is showing precisely what is wrong with the Westphalian model. So we started with in 2001 with a secular state, sovereign secular state that was orderly. Then we had an American intervention that opened up the Pandora's box. This American intervention was on moralistic grounds, and now you are left with a situation that is much worse than the original situation. So what do you do then? Can you really meaningfully put forward an alternative moralistic view, or do you have to strive to understand? And I stop here.
Yeah, I think that's really fascinating. And I while you were talking and reading the paper on a comparison between your tripartite meta taxonomy and another one, which is Michael Walter's in Interpretation of Social Criticism. So both you and Walter struggle with the straitjacket of what you call revelation and reason, and he calls discovery and invention, right? So there's something problematic with revelation or discovery that makes us nervous, but then there's also, that seems to be something problematic with total invention. But then you opt for nature, whereas he opts for interpretation. And interpretation both is somehow tries to incorporate the real, the here and now, the fungible, the stuff where we live, and the normative that Eyal was referring to, whereas nature, I don't know, what does nature do to us? Does it bring us back to revelation in some sort of secular way? Does it put us aloof from any, and I'm referring to Eyal's concerns, any normative concerns? Does it open horizons for a new theology, a godless theology, or what have you? So I'm very sympathetic to the notion that the straitjacket is problematic. I just don't see whether the third way is an improvement or a scapegoat or what.
Maybe we'll add 2 more questions so we will have more people be able to respond.
Actually, it's really different question, but I understand that we're short on time.
Yeah.
But the first one was, I didn't have an opportunity. I'm sorry, I just have a copy of it so I can relate to a presentation. But first, I think that the thesis that stays in the class is controversial. I don't know how important is the argument. So there is a case to make, yes, once, if you look from mid-19th century to now, you had a very small number of very strong states in the world that together maybe, were omnipotent. That's no longer the case, but there are many more states. So maybe the statist power in the world is distributed between more agents, but it doesn't mean that the state as an institution has declined. On the contrary, there are 190 states today, 150 years ago, the next 20. So there are many challenges in this thesis. I don't know if it's something you want to relate to. the second is maybe very briefly, when political scientists speak about different forms of legitimacy, one that is often related to the European Union is the story of output legitimacy that resonates with naturalism. It says we don't have to ask too many questions about the sources of why the state is legitimate, but if it exists and delivers certain outcomes. Yeah, so for Hobbes, these are the outcomes that the state has to deliver are very limited, and today maybe we expect more outcomes, then it is legitimate. But you seem to have even a different idea of the naturalist legitimacy, that it's not even about delivering any outcomes, it's just about the ability to exist and rule as such, no matter what is done with this power. And then from this perspective, I'm a bit confused about what's the problem with Iraq. So somebody invaded and demolished. What's the criticize?
We'll take one more question, and then we'll come back to you and take another, or collect a few more. So Danny, please.
Yeah, I really enjoyed your paper. I was wondering if you need another paradigm to take into account, maybe Paris. The French Revolution, or the invention of popular sovereignty already, maybe you would say in a sense, left the Roman tradition. Because when you exchange the king or the emperor or some supreme authority with the people, everything changes already, because you have not only completely different normative justification, but you also have a completely different institutional design you need. And if the people are the one who decide, then you need public sphere, you need fundamental, the constitution, you need fundamental rights and so on. So it is already different from the Roman law, even though it's still named sovereignty. So I was wondering how this fits into your model and how this relates to the Spinoza criticism. Would you say that democracy, in a way, took into account Spinoza's points? How democratic is your Spinoza? I mean, there's some Spinoza scholars who drive him very much in that direction. Maybe Tony Nigri and in Germany Martin Saar see him more like a radical Democrat. But you can also just say, okay, I mean, the whole point is just the emperor needs to take the people's effects into account. He needs to be prudent about it. So I was just wondering what you think, how the democratic tradition relates to the naturalist tradition that you were
respond shortly?
Yes, thank you. So I will start with Anoch, and yes, well, the question about what nature brings here, or well, more precisely, Spinoza's naturalism. And well, I'd have to say that Spinoza's naturalism is a pure type of naturalism, in the sense that it starts from a metaphysical position, the idea of Deus sive natura, as the one substance in the world, and presents the whole world as a world of causal relations that can be tracked back to the original cause. So this replaces entirely a world in which we rely on human reason to work out an objective realm of values out there. Instead, well, he really proposes that we can make sense of the world, we can make sense of nature by striving to improve on our scientific understanding of it. Of course, this understanding of causes is bound to be limited forever, in the sense that even if we can strive to make sense of the world, we will never have a full or a fully worked out picture of the order of the world. But what drives our sort of projects is the possibility of making sense of these causal traditions. And to be very clear, then this in legal terms translates in my mind in a Montesquieuan theory of law, a theory that does not treat law as something that is in need of extra justification. Law, I mean, the law on the ground is the necessary product of the interplay of causal forces that exist in the world. So you can explain a regime by reference to a number of empirical forces, and the gist of this naturalistic methodology is precisely to turn from normativistic explanations of politics and law to very empirically grounded explanations that blend different types of empirical insights. And this of course is in need for detail, but the gist of the position is the idea that it reverts or changes the way in which we understand law and politics via empirical driven methodologies. I'll keep it very short, and the second question was on I forgot the second question was that was the third question on Paris. I mean, as I said, the Roman paradigm at the beginning is a purely stipulative paradigm, in the sense that what I'm referring to is not a way of embedding exactly the Roman tradition. I'm saying that I'm simply saying that Rome stands there for a way of understanding political reality, and a way that again takes into account history, experience, and empirical explanations. So to this extent, I don't need Paris. I don't need this new move, because it can be subsumed easily within the Roman model.
We have 3 more minutes for 2 more comments, so we will keep a short response and wrap up. Please.
I was actually just going to amplify Enoch's. Really, in the end, your naturalism almost looks like might means right, because if a successful state is one that just wipes out its enemies and survives and thrives, then it looks like that's all it takes. So you have to have something really normative built into the idea of survival and thriving, and maybe Hume actually is the naturalist that is probably most able to make these two things work together.
Thank you.
Last comment?
Sorry about that.
So, Lorenzo, please. Response.
Yeah, well, again, I want to resist this suggestion, in the sense that, I can see how, all legal and political philosophy is prefaced by the sort of need of artificially distinguishing might and right, by a sort of creating ex novo a normative category, as Grotius does, but a category that begs very much its own explanation. Where do these moral values or obligations come from? How do you explain the existence of it? And even when you accept the existence of them, then how come that, do they really make a difference in the way in which we organize power? And my intuition, my insight is that we've lived through centuries of moralizing legal and political theories that wanted to make the world a better place, only to realize that the reality of international political relations is a reality of conflict of interests and conflict of powers. So what I'm trying to do is to start from this very basic insight that politics at the international national level is power, and the only thing that differentiates my account from the might need right account is that I'm trying to build up a naturalistic explanation of how power could possibly be exercised in a way that is in line with our natural inclinations to flourish and create somehow a community that is conducive to our own freedom rather than not. And the way I do it is precisely addressed in all the points that we've touched before. But the key idea is that human beings, in Spinoza's account, are not rational or free. There is this is a mistaken belief. In order to become fully rational, fully in control of your own freedom, you have to do a background work that goes at the roots of your own feelings and emotions, your own psychological biases, and only when you do that, you'll be able to exercise freedom in a way that is consistent with building up proper relationships.
Thank you very much.